Hey there, friends. My name is Jim, and boy, do we have some Alec Baldwin news. His Helena Hutchin's husband came out and made an interview with 60 Minutes. There's a CGI recreation that Helena Hutchin's husband's lawyers made, what they allege happened at the scene, and I wanted to take a look at Alec Baldwin's interview that he did a little while ago just to see how that compares to what they say happened. So let's take a quick look at that. It's going to be fun. So, if you remember, about 2 months ago, well, 3 months ago now, December 3rd, 2021, Alec Baldwin went out after having shot Helena Hutchins and decided to make an interview to make himself look less bad. And in the interview, he said a couple of interesting things that I wanted to go over before we look at the CGI recreation, just to see how they clash, if they clash a little bit. Starting with this, this is more of just an important point right here. Well, he points out what Helena Hutchins and him did to prepare for the role and how she showed him how to shoot. And this I found was interesting is that he knows the difference between when he's shooting a gun that has a blank or a dummy round in it and when he doesn't, because he has to force his arm to come back, as he'll explain right here real quick.
She say things like, "Remember, this is a blank round, so you have to create the discharge yourself because there's no projectile." So if you shot the gun, you go bang. When we roll the camera, you got to go bang and have the gun snap back. You have to create that. She would give you little tips about firing.
So I thought that was interesting because of what he said about when he shoots the gun. Because later in the interview, he mentions that he shoots a gun and he wasn't even sure that it actually hit her. He thought that maybe she passed out because of the loudness of the bang from the blank. But how does that make sense if he knows when there's a real bullet in there, it forces his arm back. When there isn't, he has to forcibly do that. I thought that was a little bit interesting. And then also he mentioned right here, sorry,
the people on the film. The first time I heard that there was any problem with anybody in the crew of the film was when Luber said, "Well, we have some issues here."
Lane Looper, the first camera assistant, would email production managers a resignation letter later that night, citing safety concerns. Quote, "During the filming of gunfights on this job, things are often played very fast and loose. So far, there have been 2 accidental weapons discharges." He also wrote about concerns about reasonable rest and housing for local crew with long commutes to the set.
When he quit, now, the day before that happened, we wrapped. And he came up to me and he said, "Thank you for the position you've taken on behalf of IATSE and the union on social."
See, so from here he goes on a really long screed about how he treated them with really up-to respect and how everybody really loved what he did. And then, once they were done wrapping filming, then they had all these complaints that they did, and then they wrapped. It's silly, it's nonsensical, but it goes to show that he knew about the problems that they were having. And then, obviously, in part 2 of this interview, when he begins to tell you what he says happened preceding the incident of the accidental discharge, as he claims.
She's guiding me through how she wants me to hold the gun for this angle. And I draw the gun out and I find a mark, I draw the gun out, I find a cut. And what's really urgent is the gun wasn't meant to be fired in that angle.
So if you're shooting directly into the camera lens, you're not aiming.
I'm not shooting to the camera lens. I'm shooting just off.
Just off.
Right. In
Important
her direction.
distinction,
I'm holding the gun
Alec.
where she told me to hold it, which ended up being aimed right in below her armpit. It was what I was told. I don't know. This was a completely incidental
doesn't know.
shot. An angle that
No
may not have
idea.
ended up in the film at all. But we kept doing this, and so then I said to her, "Now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun." And I said, "Do you want to see that?" And she said, "Yes." So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, "Do you see that?" She goes, "Well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that." And I cock the gun. I go, "Can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that?" And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
He let go of the hammer of the gun, and the gun goes off. Now, this has been already shown multiple times that this would be impossible unless he had his finger on the trigger at the time. And he goes on to claim he didn't have his finger on the trigger. Regardless of all that, you can feel free to watch the full interview if you want to. It's easy to find, but this is what I would like to draw your interest to for now, because the lawyers for Helena Hutchin released a video reenacting the movie set shooting showing when she was killed by Alec Baldwin. So I figured we'd take a quick look at this so you'd get an idea of exactly what happened. It's important to remember this is according to the lawyers for Helena Hutchin, so they're going to put it in the worst possible light, but what possible good light could you put it in? So let's take a quick look at that. Take myself off screen for this. a neat recreation. I like it. I mean, it's a good job they did, obviously. Actually might have higher budget than the actual movie. Considering they should have just done the whole movie like this. It wouldn't have to use Alec Baldwin at all, and nobody would have gotten shot. Bang! Okay, you know, and then... And from there, actually, it gets a little bit more than what I like to show on YouTube, but it goes to show, like, from where she got shot a couple of times and everything. But I just wanted to point that out as there's no good way for this to look for Alec Baldwin. And the important thing is that he has yet to have been arrested, and that has to do with his political stance and his elitism. Like I was telling my my mother the other day, if an 8-year-old shot his sister in this way, he would be arrested. So what is with Alec Baldwin having not been arrested? It's very obvious. It's because it's part of that class, that group that me and you are not a part of. So now let's just take a quick look at what Helena Hutchin's husband had to say regarding that particular interview and how he felt seeing Alec Baldwin cheese his way out of this.
Watching him, I just felt so angry. Just so angry to see him talk about her death so publicly in such a detailed way, and then to not accept any responsibility after having just described killing her.
He said essentially he felt grief but no guilt.
Alec Baldwin wants you to
Almost
remember
sounds like
he's a victim. Yeah.
And hearing him blame Helena in the interview and,
Poor guy, man.
and shift responsibility to others.
I feel
and-
for him. This is an awkward
and seeing him
position.
Cry about it. I just feel like, are we really supposed to feel bad about you, Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you.
That the majority of the blame lays on Alec Baldwin.
The idea that
Lady, the majority of the blame, what do you mean he pulled out a gun and shot somebody? They all, literally all of the blame, how about? Not the majority. Anybody else in his position shooting somebody, it's presumed to have been murder, and then you can see about the story later, but you get arrested immediately. Literally everybody for the history of all time forever. Okay? This isn't some white thing. This is an elite class thing, and the fact that he has correct politics. And he immediately went into the, we need to start having better rules about guns on film sets. But according to his own recollection of his own staff, he was not following the industry standards on these types of things.
the person holding the gun, causing it to discharge, is not responsible is absurd to me. Every individual who touches a firearm has a responsibility for gun safety.
Thank you. And that's the other thing. This guy's probably put in such an awkward position because I'm sure he's a lefty liberal guy because he works in Hollywood. His wife was a Hollywood, worker with the shaved head and all this jazz. So I'm sure he's confused and he probably doesn't want to act against his team right now because that's his tribe. But seriously, this guy shot my wife and he didn't get arrested. And you're sitting here and saying, so you're saying that you think he deserves the majority of the blame? He shot her. Come on now. If it wasn't Alec Baldwin, even if it was a slightly lesser actor, or maybe even just as high of an actor, but with a different political bent, it would have been arrested. Had this been Clint Eastwood, he would have been arrested on the spot. That's all I'm saying.
Safety was not the only problem on that set. There were a number of industry standards that were not practiced, and there's multiple responsible parties.
The suit, which alleges at least 15 safety practices were disregarded on set, claims there was a wider culture of cost-cutting that ultimately led to Helena's death.
Which was mentioned in the interview with Stephanopoulos. If you want to go back and take a look at that interview, there was a large chunk of it that I thought I might show, but I thought it was kind of tasteless, where Alec just dedicates it to the fact that, a lot of people spend $200 and $300 million on movies. I spend $5 million on movies, so, I have a higher standard of needing to make this money stretch, as if that's an excuse for this.
Statement, Baldwin's attorney says any claim that Alec was reckless is entirely false.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
your
he just
mind's
blew
eye,
somebody's
what does
fucking brains
justice
out, but
look like?
I'm sorry, her heart out, not
We're
brains.
pursuing justice every way we can, with the lawsuit seeking to hold accountable the people who are responsible for Helena's death, which was totally preventable. In the end, justice won't bring Helena back, but maybe the memory of her can help keep people safe and prevent something like this from ever happening again.
The American film.
And then they kind of go into their little bit about the American film industry and how they're doing a scholarship for her, which in my opinion is just a way to launder money for rich people. It's just, hey, we can create a... That's a different type of argument. But the entirety of the point here is this gentleman lost his wife, and his 9-year-old son lost her mother, or lost his mother. They lost her parents lost a daughter. Everybody here lost a big chunk of their lives, and it would be the smallest part of consoling that family. The very beginning of justice would be to arrest the person who killed that human being. But because Alec Baldwin is Alec Baldwin, that's not how justice works. You explain that to me. Give me one example where something like this doesn't lead to the arrest, and that's a good thing. It's insane. And I would say that we need to... Whatever pull I have, if you can talk to your mother, your brother, your sister, and tell them about this, and show them the interview, and show them the husband of this of Helena Hutchins, you know, the pain, and just get this out there. This guy needs to go to jail. This is crazy. Anyways, guys, I thought this was a little bit different than what's going on in Ukraine right now, but I'm certain we'll be back talking about that fairly soon. So please like, share, subscribe. Feel free to support me in the support links below. Go to my Twitter and feel free to share this video with anybody that you might be interested in it. You guys have a wonderful evening.